Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Welcome to our Salaat program, How to Pray a Good Prayer. And today we'll be continuing on from where we left our discussion. So let's start the program. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Firstly, I'd like to welcome Sukeena Fatima, Noor Fatima, and Tahireen Fatima. Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining. I understand today might be your last day with us, Noor Fatima. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Maybe you could do one more extra day. Sorry?
I could do another one.
Yeah, same with me, sadly.
Okay. Right. So what did we discuss yesterday? If you could remind the viewers and myself so that I know where we have to go from what we discussed yesterday.
How to pray a polite prayer.
That's right. So we were discussing about the polite prayer. And what did we come across? What things did the author address in what we had read? Do you remember? Anything that you remember from yesterday?
So I'm gonna say it first because since it's my last day here, I should just try my best in saying it. So we learned yesterday that while praying, if you scratch yourself, it's really impolite, and that's the area that Shaitan will curse.
Yes, okay. A very morbid form of explanation, but fine. Noor Fatma, can you explain me anything else?
Yeah, so we basically learned how to play a polite player, and the first thing that we discussed was that we need to understand who we're praying in front of. We have to have this certain respect that we understand how big like Allah Ta'ala is. Then after that, we discussed the second step to praying a polite prayer, which was following the basic rules of our prayer. So he gave an example like, do you need to cry in prayer, or do you need to say pronounce the Arabic words right? And we said obviously it's to pronounce the Arabic words right. So that's what we read up to at this point.
That's correct. Okay, let's move on to the next part. So the next chapter is about the household of the Prophet ﷺ, and detailed emphasis on being polite in praying. So how did the Ahlul Bayt pray their Salaat, and what does it mean in their eyes of having a polite prayer or doing a polite prayer? So could I ask Sukeena Fatima if you could read the first paragraph? So page 79.
The household of the Prophet ﷺ, detailed emphasis on being polite in praying. A servant being polite in front of the God of the universe is one of the issues that the household of the Prophet ﷺ paid attention to very much. They have given much advice about how to be polite while praying, and even mentioned the details.
Noor Fatma, if you could read.
For example, Imam Rida alayhi salam said, if you want to pray, don't get up lethargically for praying. Don't pray while dozing off. Don't pray hastily. Instead, pray with calm and serenity. When you want to stand
can I stop you there? So Imam Rida alayhi salam says, so when you go for prayer, don't go for prayer in a lazy form, lethargically. Okay, so for example, when you hear the prayer, then you're like, oh, I don't want to go. That's disrespectful. Okay, so you need to make sure you go there with respect. Okay, not like you're not bothered for it. It's something that is terrible, even though you might not want to go for it and you might be feeling lazy, but don't express that laziness. Does that make sense? Okay, so you might not be in the mood for praying. That's fine, but don't express that mood apparently. So keep it inside you and try to talk inside to you know you have to pray because it's the most important thing. But sometimes your body doesn't want to go because you're tired, maybe there's something more interesting for you, because Salat, we have to be honest, is not so interesting for us because we don't understand it properly. But we shouldn't behave in a way where we are getting up very slowly and lazily. We have to do it very quick. And so then it says, don't pray while dozing off. Now, what does that mean? So don't pray while you're feeling sleepy, because you're not going to have your concentration in salat, and you prefer going to sleep rather than feeling sleepy. But if you yawn, that's not an issue. Sometimes yawns come, but dozing off means that you're half awake and half asleep. Then Imam says, don't pray hastily. So don't quickly pray your prayer as if you're in a rush. You have to go somewhere else. Because at the end of the day, that's also rude. Why? Because as we discussed, when you're talking to someone, do you quickly talk to someone and run off? No, you don't. You have a decent conversation. Instead, pray with calm and serenity. So you need to calm yourself down before you come to pray.
Right.
You shouldn't have any kind of behavior in certain way where you're rushing to leave the prayer quickly, or you're so lazy in coming into prayer. So you should rush to pray and not rush leaving the prayer. You should calm and slowly read your prayer. Salat. Continue reading, please.
Instead, pray with calm and serenity. When you want to stand up in front of your God while praying, stand up in front of God like a sinful servant whom his master wants to punish. This is being polite in prayer, even if you haven't sinned. Place your feet straight and firm. Be harsh with your own will. Don't look this way and that. Don't play with your beard or other parts of your body. Don't crack your knuckles. Don't scratch yourself. Don't touch or fidget with your nose and clothes. When you are standing in prayer, always look at the place where you prostrate. Pray with eagerness, fear, and enthusiasm. In another similar
Okay,
tradition,
can I stop you there? So pray with eagerness, fear, and enthusiasm. Okay, these are the three things that you need to pay attention to. So what does it mean by fear? Fear means that you have to know that you're standing in front of someone who has created what?
the whole universe, everything.
No, he's created hell. You need to think of hell to fear Allah, for example. Another thing is, okay, look at all those dangerous creatures that Allah's created. A snake, a lion, a tiger, crocodile. These are very dangerous animals if you are exposed to them. So so you need to fear Allah in that kind of way, for example. That's not a full explanation, but I'm just summarizing it for you so that you understand what we are talking about. Continue reading, please.
In another similar tradition, Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam said, when you stand up to pray, don't fidget with your hands, head, and beard. Don't yawn. Don't try to remove your fatigue by stretching your hands. Don't lean on this foot or that foot. Stand on both of your feet. Don't stick your legs together, and don't separate them very much either. Don't put your forearms on the ground while prostrating. Don't stick them to the ground. Don't crack your knuckles loudly in a way that can be heard by others, because all of these cause imperfections in the prayer. Don't get up for praying lethargically. Don't pray while dozing off or when you feel heavy. Why have the household of the Prophet ﷺ stressed these details in the rituals of praying? It is because being polite in front of God is very important, and the household of the Prophet ﷺ wanted to teach us how to be polite in prayer.
So can I stop you there? Did you understand this? So over here were the do's and the don'ts, basically. What to do and what not to do while you are standing in salat or you're praying salat. So let's just recap, summarize it very quickly. What did you understand? So when you now pray, were you aware of these rules? Can I ask Sukeena, Fatma, did you know this?
Yeah.
Darren, Fatma, did you know this? Okay.
Yeah.
Would you sometimes quickly pray your prayer? I'm asking all three of
Yeah.
you.
Um,
Yeah.
uh,
So try not to do that. Always imagine you're talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when you're talking to a person, you need to give your time to that person. You can't speed up your recitation or whatever you're reading, okay? So that's the manner. So this is the apparent politeness that you have to give. So far, what the author has discussed is the apparent politeness. not the inner politeness. Okay, there's a few touch of the inner politeness, such as you should be enthusiastic, you should have a bit of fear inside you, and eagerness. So these three things have to do with the inside, not the outside. The outside is more of don't fidget, don't touch, don't scratch, don't do any of these kind of physical things, which can show disrespect. But then the inner aspect, he's touched on a few aspects, but I think the author will discuss those further down in the book. Do you understand so far? Do you have any questions about Salat? Of how to be a polite person, for example? Noor, Fatima.
I think I have bettered my understanding at the moment. Before I didn't understand how big of a thing it was when you pray, because I didn't think prayer was alive, but I'm starting to understand better that it's something really important.
Yes. Yes, it's very important because the problem is even all of us, we keep forgetting. And because it's a repetitive habit, sometimes we just make it into a habit. And when it becomes a habit, then it loses its respect. So we should never make it into a habit because every prayer should be different from the previous prayer. Not in the form of how we pray, it's always repetition. But every day you should see it as a new entity, as something new, an opportunity that's come again. And only then it won't be a repetition. It won't become a habit. Because once it becomes a habit, then your mind goes somewhere else. You start thinking about, oh, I've got my, for example, GCSE exams. I have to study this. I have to do that while you're reciting. So you're not paying attention to what you're doing. It's just a habit, and then you might forget. Did I do my ruku? Did I do my ruku, or did I go straight into sajud? Do you have those doubts while you're praying sometimes? Do you have doubts, for
Sometimes.
example? Like, did I do this? Did I not do that? Did I even read my qunut? So these things happen only because your concentration is not there. And concentration, there are two types of concentration you need in your brain while you're reading Salat. One is thinking of Allah, and at the same time, navigating your Salat. Are you in Qiyam? Are you in the second rakah, or the third rakah, or the fourth rakah, or the first rakah? But this only happens is you forget or you suspect what have you done is because your concentration and memory lapse happens. So these things have to be taken into consideration. Now, Tareen, Fatma, how do you pray? Do you have doubts in your salat?
Um, sometimes.
Sometimes. So when you do have them, what's the reason that you would have doubts in your salat?
I was distracted and I was thinking of something else.
Yes. So it's very important that we think correctly while we're praying. So if you really want salat to help you, the first thing you need to do is make sure that you're praying correctly. And that's the whole objective of this book. And we're nearly halfway there. We've done more than half, I would say, of the book itself. And the main aspect is that we make sure that when we pray, Allah's not asking us to do a 4 or 5 hour job for Him. For example, when you go to a workplace or when you go to school, you have to be in school for how long? 6, 7 hours, for example, yes? Even and people like myself who work, we have jobs, we have to work 6, 7 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours, some people work even 12 hours. Allah hasn't asked that much time from us. But what He asked is a small amount of time during the whole day, divided into different parts of the day, but then just a few minutes of our time He wants, but with a quality time where you pay attention to Him. That's all He's asking. And I would say it's a bit of a pity for all of us, even this is for myself as well. I'm advising myself and then yourselves that if He's asking only a little bit of time, then why can't we give quality time to Him by thinking about Him and praying a bit slowly and working on that prayer? Because He hasn't asked to give Him 2, 3 hours of our time to Him. No, He hasn't. He's only asked 10 minutes of our time in the day for each prayer, for example. And then why can't we give that 10 minutes? It's not much. We have so much time, we can waste time in doing a lot of other things, and we pay attention to those things. For example, when we're reading a book, do we pay attention to something else when we're reading a book? No, we're paying attention to the book that we're reading, isn't it? But unfortunately, there's one book that we don't pay attention to. We read the book, but we don't know what we're reading, which is what book is that?
Quran.
The Quran, unfortunately, which is a sad thing. So we recite the Arabic, but we don't know what we're reading. And again, the same thing is prayer. When we're doing Salat, it's the same issue there as well. We're doing our Salat, but we're not paying attention to what we're doing. And unfortunately, unfortunately, we don't realize that these two things are the most important thing in our life. And these are the ones that will be affecting what happens in our future, how our future, I mean, for example, your futures as well. So for example, in your futures, you want to probably go to university, and then after university, how your life comes up, what kind of job you want to do, then marriage, children, all of that is affected according to this salah. And we're not paying attention to this. Even every day, how happy we are or what's happening with us is all affected by the salah. So we need to pay attention to these two things, and then all our world fixes up comfortably and nicely when we pay attention to these two prayers. So continue reading, Noor Fatma.
Observing propriety in the preparations before the prayer, supplications after prayer, and praying on time. In addition to observing the rules and rituals for prayer, we must try to observe propriety in the preparations before the prayer and the supplications after the prayer. For example, when we are making the minor ablution, we must pay more attention and observe its rituals. We shouldn't pour water on our hands in such a way that it splashes everywhere. We must pay attention to the fact that we are doing something that is respectable. If you want to wash a piece of fruit in front of a guest and hand it to him, how will you wash it? Very respectfully. When you want to make the minor ablution in front of God, be careful that the purpose of making the ablution is not just to be clean up and neat so that you can bang your hand quickly and impatiently and leave. Are you upset at doing this task so that you do it so impatiently? Do you want God to not let you pray and say, I don't want you to pray at all? Don't pray. Are you upset that I wanted to be your God and see your servitude someplace? Whenever a person prays, gets up without
So,
reading the supplication. Yeah?
so you read this part. Do you want God to not let you pray and say, I don't want you to pray at all? Don't pray. Are you upset that I wanted to be your God and see your servitude someplace? So what this point is trying to say is that um, the reason why you need to do wuzu, so you don't need to do it slowly, but you have to do it where, how can you make sure your wuzu is respectful? There are two ways. One is by not wasting the water that you're using, because we need to worry about the environment. There are places where there is drought, they don't have water. So we shouldn't be excessive keeping the tap on and the water is just, flowing there and you're doing your wuzu. So you need to be careful of how much water you use. And then at the same time, respectfully, cleanse yourself by thinking you're cleansing your face, your arms, your feet. And the reason why you're doing this is because you want to get closer to Allah. So when you wash your face, you say you want your face to have Noor on it so that you can see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment with happiness and light on your face. You wash your hands so that you say, my hands are for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you do masa for your head and your feet, so your feet are only, you walk wherever Allah wants you to walk, and your head thinks only about Allah. So these are the kind of things you should be thinking while you're doing wuzu. And you can even make it even more nicer if you read Inna Anzalna, Surah Qadr, in your wuzu. So while you're doing a wuzu, you can recite that this surah is very much beneficial. Continue reading, Noor.
Whenever a person prays, gets up without reading the supplication, which follow the prayer, and leaves, God tells the angel, give him back his prayer. I have told him that he may ask for something after the prayers, and I will give him whatever he wants from me. But he got up and left. Where is he going? Without reading the recommended prayer which follows the prayer, Which affairs of his world does he want to go take care of? Doesn't he know that all of his affairs are in my hands? O my angels, do you want me to ruin his affairs so that he will understand all of his needs are in my hands? In addition to observing the rituals of prayers, paying attention to the preparations before prayer and the supplications after it, one of the important points which shows our politeness in front of the God of the universe is praying on time. Praying on time is a part of being polite. A person who prays late and delays his or her prayer is disrespecting God in his way. The Supreme Leader, Ayatullah Khamenei, had a meeting with some officials. When the others had finished talking, it was his turn to talk. After talking for about a quarter of an hour, the call to prayer could be heard. He said, "If we continue our meeting now, it is a disrespect to prayer." He stopped his talk and continued after prayer. The commander of the faithful, Ali alayhi salam, said, "Be careful that worldly affairs don't stop you from praying on time. God has blamed some groups of people due to their neglecting the time of prayer. He has said, 'Those who are heedless of their prayer.' This means those who are neglectful about the times of prayer."
Okay, so did you understand that part?
Yeah.
What did you understand?
I understood that we need to make sure to not neglect our prayers by praying them on time, and also by making sure we're doing the preliminaries before prayer well, like wudu, and the stuff after prayer, like supplications as well, because otherwise it's disrespectful to God and impolite.
And Sukeena, Fatima, did you understand? What did you understand?
No, kind of explained it all.
Okay, Tareen, Fatima, what did you understand?
So I understood what Nuri understood.
Okay, you did not understand what we just discussed, what was read, which is a pity. Tareen, Fatima, you need to pay more attention to what's being said and what's being read. So now I'll ask you to read the next part so that you know what's being discussed.
Wait, it's unfair because Sukeena said the same thing.
No, I
Well,
did not.
She
can
said,
you start
he said,
reading, please? Tareen, Fatima, can you start reading?
yeah, I don't know the pronounce of the required, like,
The requisite.
the requisite to good behavior is politeness and affection. What is necessary in praying is to show politeness in front of God and not express affection. Being polite is something we should always do, and it doesn't have anything to do with being in a good mood and having affection. I mean that one can always be polite. The friends of God show their politeness more than they show affection in their prayers or in their supplications. Do you know what the meaning of politeness is? It is possible that in many cases, a person is not in the mood to show affection. Although he doesn't feel like doing so, he gets up and stands up in front of his father. Then is being polite. Okay, this is being polite. If a, if a person is polite, he will smile and greet his neighbors when he sees them, even if he is not in the mood to greet him at the moment. Although you aren't in love with your neighbor, when you see him, you will greet him very respectfully.
Okay, can
In
I
a
stop you here?
situation,
What did you understand from here?
um, you should be polite even if you're not inside the mood of it and you don't feel like being polite.
Yes. And what example did the author give of
His
how?
neighbor,
Yes. So when we meet a neighbor, even if we don't, we're not really close to them, but we still politely speak to them, don't we? We say hello, hi, in a respectful manner, isn't that right? And we have a decent conversation with them as well, just asking how they are, what they're doing, even though we might not have any feelings for them. We don't love them, we don't care about them, but still we show, what do we show?
respect.
Respect and politeness. So That's the same kind of example we should be giving to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where we should still show him that respect, even though we don't know him that well, we're not that close to him, but still he deserves more than a neighbor our respect and politeness. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the example the author has used in this. So it's giving another reason as to why it's a requirement to be polite in Salat and in front of Allah. So these things should build up how now Salat should be important for yourselves. Okay, continue reading. Can I ask Noor Fatima if you could read now?
In a situation where there is no affection involved, politeness forces a person to behave well and correctly. Even when a person is not in need of the person who is in front of him, he will show a correct behavior due to his politeness. For example, when we meet each other, we say, Salam alaikum, how are you? Are you alright? May your pilgrimage be accepted. Perhaps when a person who doesn't know the correct meaning of politeness sees your behavior, he will say, do you want some money from this person, or are you in need of him that you greet him so warmly? Not only I don't want any money from him, if he asks for money from me, I am willing to lend it to him. So why are you so courteous to him like this? Do you like him that much? Since he is not a very good person, not only don't I like him very much, in addition, even if they tell me that he has passed away, I won't get very upset. It is only politeness that requires me to be cautious to him. It is politeness that tells me to smile. All smiling is not due to affection. Being cautious is not always due to begging and needing. Whenever you smile at someone, it is because you want something from him. It is politeness that tells a person to have this behavior even without feeling affection or need. It is interesting that politeness tells a person to behave like this even if he or she is not in the mood. A polite person won't yawn in front of others, even if he is very tired and bored. He says, I am
Okay,
a
can I
polite
stop you
person.
there now? So we're running out of time as well. So we leave it at this point. What have you understood so far? Can we just summarize quickly? Sukeena, Fatima, if you could summarize for me.
You should, I think, you should respect prayer because you're going to pray in front of the Almighty God who created the universe. You should know to be polite while you're praying because you be polite to everyone, not everyone, but most people you don't know you're polite to them. But God, who's created, you should be extra polite to Him. You shouldn't fidget while praying. You shouldn't move around. You should
Right. And Tareen, Fatima, what have you understood?
I've understood even if you don't like anyone or you don't like someone, you still have to show politeness and you still have to smile and show politeness towards them. You should also not fidget while praying or be distracted. You should think of prayer, not random thoughts that you have in your mind. Yeah, okay.
Okay, I think we'll end the program here today. Thank you so much,